think it was the simplicity, really. It was the simplicity of the techniques and the just the way you could plug them in wherever you were at, wherever you found yourself, and no matter what style you ended up using, you can always go back to those techniques. It was like baptism by fire, because you see the DVDs and you see the simplicity, and then you see all the options that you can go from there, and where it kind of branches out, and you're able to just make everything work. I think the first thing that you find that separates it is just the depth of knowledge from the instructors. A lot of, especially defensive tactics companies and different systems are very rigid step by step. That it's a step one, then step two, step three. You're never going to make it work if you skip a step. And for ISR, it's different. It's just, you know, in the name, the matrix. It's just that you can plug this in, and if you happen to end up skipping a step or end up here, it's not a rigid. As far as the instructors, just that knowledge coming from the instructors and just that family and that ownership that they represent.
Why?
Right, it increases it exponentially, just because I can use the techniques offensively, I can use them defensively, and the entire time I'm keeping that officer safe. So I feel comfortable taking a brand new recruit that has absolutely no street experience and teach them the few concepts that they're able to retain, and send them out to work in a jail or to work on the street and feel comfortable that they're going to keep themselves safe. At the same time, I can teach that to a SWAT team and a bunch of veteran officers, and know that they're going to be able to use their own knowledge to just enhance whatever ISR brings to them.
How's that?
I've introduced it at the agency, and that's our basis for our defensive tactics program for the agency. So we're using those concepts constantly for all our new recruits. We're really lucky, and we got just unconditional support from our leadership as far as the program that we implemented. They trusted me, they trusted our training sergeant, and we were able to implement it on basically our knowledge. But throughout the course of teaching over and over, we've actually gotten good buy-in to the system itself and not just our knowledge of it. So our leadership is actually coming to take the class. After a class, we'll do a feedback session where we want to know, good or bad, how did you feel? And almost to a person, we really love this. It's something I can train full speed and not get hurt. I know it works. I feel confident that I can go out and deal with the job. We're able to dial it up and down as we need to. The whole basis of some of the drills that we do are just a controlled response, and we're able to dial that up and down. And in doing so, we're never doing anything that puts somebody at inherent risk of danger. Yes, because the entire time, with the breadth of knowledge that we have from law enforcement and military personnel that are instructors, they know the ins and outs of escalation and de-escalation. And so there's always a time when somebody can step in and say, look, this is where you're always verbalizing, you're talking now. When it's time to go hands-on, this is where you're going. So you're able to dial that up and down, and that translates to less injuries for our officer, because he's using his words, he's using communication, but at the same time he has these techniques that he can use. For the suspects, it's giving them a chance to comply the entire time until they decide they're not going to, and then we have tools to bring them into compliance. It's definitely its own system. You would be hard-pressed to find anything original as far as any type of fighting style or defensive tactics, because it goes back through human history of just violence, and people have been doing that for years. So to say that this is strictly this or that, it's really degrading the system. The system stands on its own, and just the way you're manipulating, you may recognize a technique from a certain style, but that doesn't make it that style. Just the basic standards. As far as becoming an instructor, you have a base level of 120 hours of subject control that we require from our instructors. So knowing that means for 120 hours, the other instructors, the senior instructors, have been hands-on watching that person develop and watching them do teach-backs and watching them do everything that's required of them. But at the same time, those instructors are getting in and showing different things and tweaking and correcting. So the entire time you have that feedback. I think that in itself leads to the lack of infighting, because it's not this person over here doing their own thing and this person doing their own thing. And then when it comes together, you have a battling, well, this guy told me to do this and this guy told me to do that, but it's that common terminology and common tactics and then each person has their own individuality, and that's what makes it great. I think the biggest thing that they take away from it, because one of the last classes that we did, we had one of our majors in it, and he looked at the techniques, and I think he was looking for a reason to not like it, and he came away completely sold on it. And it's the amount of control that I have over my subject, and the lack of the just brute force that's needed to control somebody. So when you're dealing with somebody, no matter if it's the person that just doesn't want to go to jail because of a parking ticket warrant, or the violent offender, they're the same tactics and the same techniques, yet I can ramp up my level of force depending on the situation. So we have the ability to use common sense. We have the ability to plug whatever agency policy that we have into the situation and still keep people safe. So in that aspect, I'm not teaching somebody to just beat on somebody and to beat them into compliance. So we're able to, again, control the subject control. Because given my size and another person's size, I can make something work that maybe they can't. But when you break down the techniques to their core and their basic, it's leverage. And so when you show a smaller officer a tweak that they might need to use on a bigger subject, and they see it work, and then they're able to pressure test it and able to start working it, then you see them light up, and you see them use that over and over again. It's definitely, people move differently. People have different elements, different limitations, different experiences. So you may not move like I move. I might not move like you move because I don't have the training, or vice versa, or maybe I have an injury. And the ISR is really good about coming to you and saying, okay, this is the technique at its base, and then here's a modification for you. And I've seen several almost every instructor to a person come to you, to a certain individual that may not be as mobile as the next, and say, try it this way. And it's still a viable option and something that they're able to use and stay safe.